Hi, my name is Austin Newell, and I'm going to be showing you how to do the demon eye effect from Supernatural, where the eyes turn on black, and I'll show you what that looks like right here.
This is your problem, Dean. You have no faith.
Okay, so let's get started. Starting off with my footage pulled in here, it's just this little quick clip of one of the actors talking from the show. So the first thing I'll do is right click and start a new null object. Name this one right eye null. And what I'm going to do is click on the footage, go on over here to tracker, track motion, and you only got to worry about just the position. So what we'll do here is, as long as we're at the beginning of the clip, and we're going to track this highlight in his eye, this little circle right here. So just put it right there in the center, expand these two squares and readjust them, and we watch the track go. Okay, we have our track. So edit target, make sure it's on right null object, right eye null, apply to the X and Y. So now we have a null object that will follow the eye around. So the next thing I'll do is create a new solid, and I usually make them blue to help stay organized, and we're going to name this matte, right eye matte. So we turn the eyeball off, make sure we're at the beginning, and zoom in on his eye right here. I'm going to take the pen tool, make sure the matte layer is selected, and you're going to draw a mask around the eye. Just whatever white that you can see. So if we turn that on, it's just going to look like this. That's obviously not going to be right. So what we're going to do is attach pig whip the right eye matte to the right eye null. So now, if you just see this, it's going to follow it around, so it does a better part of the tracking for us. And so the next part is turn that off, hit M, and you're going to bring up the mask path. And so what you're going to do here is click the stopwatch in the very beginning and sit here and go frame by frame and readjust the mask shape to the shape of his eye. So a lot of the work we're not going to have to do because of the null, but the work you're really going to have to do is whenever he blinks or the eye will change shape, that's when you're going to have to do it. So I'll speed this up real quick and I'll go through and show you mine. Okay, so now we have our matte that will track the eye around, and you've adjusted the shape of it as he moves his eye. So the next thing we're going to do is create a new layer. So right click new, or new solid, and this is what we're going to make black. So all the way in black. And we'll call this right eye. You turn the layer off. You're going to put the right eye layer below the right eye matte layer. Toggle your switches right here. And you're going to make the track matte alpha matte. And so what's it going to do if you turn the eyeball back on, it's only going to show through where our mask was at. So that's the only part that it's going to be seeing through. So now we have this black layer of an eye that will track through and fairly closely adjust to the mask that we set before on the matte layer. So now what we're going to do is you can play around with the mask settings over here. So if you look real close, that looks way too sharp of an edge to look right at all. So I usually feather it 1 or 2 pixels. That's not feathering. A couple pixels there. And usually if you have the right shape, or if you don't have the right shape, you can adjust the mask expansion and bring it in or out as needed. So when you scrub through here, you're going to see that there's some parts of the eye that will show up. Like this part right here shows up a little bit more than I like. So just your mask path's already selected, the stopwatch is already on, so you'll just start to adjust the little points right here and try to cover it up. So again right here, it takes a lot of tweaking to actually make it really look like it fits in there. And the best thing I've learned just from doing this is that there's this ridge of the eye right here, and that's the part that you're going to want to try to keep, like the eyelid part. And if you get it on just the right edge, then it's going to look like it's really inset in there, because it looks more like it's in there right there than it does right here, where it looks like it covers it up. You can make it look a lot more better than what I've done here. Just depends on how many keyframes you put in there and how much you follow along. So, moving on, the next part that really helps sell this effect is if you turn down the opacity on the black layer, you'll see he has this little highlight that we tracked earlier. That is going to help show that there's shine for this. So, that means we're going to make a new solid and make this one white. And then turn it off. You're going to name this one Right Eye Highlight. So you select the layer, and what we're going to do is we're just going to trace his little highlight that he has right here. Doesn't have to be perfect. So just turn it on. We'll have the strong, oh, we don't want the blue. Turn the opacity back up. So now we're getting a little bit closer, but it just looks a little bit too strong. So if we select it here and go into the mask settings, and we can play around with it and feather it by a couple pixels. And then turn the opacity down a little bit, maybe 80%. And another thing is it's perfect white. So something that helps fix that is if we go to the solid settings for the white layer, take the eyedropper and pick one of the pixels that we have in here. So it's more of a grayish blue, not a perfect white. So now if we turn these layers back on, it looks a lot more like it belongs. And so after you got your pupil in there, you make sure to pig whip it to the right eye null. And so now you have, let me turn this off so you can see. So now we have this black eye with a pupil that follows it around in his head. Okay, so one other thing, you can leave it as is, but to me, just the black layer, one black solid and one highlight doesn't like perfectly sell it. It doesn't look like it's round like an eyeball. So what I'll do is I'll go in here, right click, new solid, and I'll pick an under gray, a little bit above black, but on the darker side of gray. And I'll go and turn it off. And I'll go in and draw a little circular mask around the eye right here. Doesn't have to be a perfect, doesn't have to be oval, just about around the shape where you'd start seeing a curve in an eye. And all I'll do is I'll duplicate, Control D, this right eye matte, set it above, or just make sure the highlight's on top, set it above the dark layer we just made, right here. And you'll select the alpha matte, so make sure, so it just gives us the same mask that we had already made before, so we don't have to make a whole nother one. So when you turn this back on, we have this just gray blob. And so if you hit, hit MM on the dark, on that gray solid, and just feather it out a lot, just until it looks like it really blends in with the eye. And so now we have this really good feather that goes around the eye that fades into the black, that kind of looks like it has a curve to it. And so another thing is this looks a little bit too light. You can see a lot of gray in there. I'll turn the opacity down on it, so maybe 50% or so. It's real subtle, but you don't want to put too much of it, because then it just attracts you and makes you realize it's not really what an eye looks like. But from farther back, it does make a good difference and gives it some kind of roundness to it to help sell the effect. So, you want to make sure that this is on, and that that medium gray layer we had made to help sell the roundness is tracked onto the right eye null. And so now we have a pretty decent looking black eye that has a highlight, a mid-tone, and all black. So you'll do the exact same process you just did from the right eye to the left eye. You can see this one changes. Like if you look at it in the very beginning of the clip, it will change from kind of a half open, half closed eye to a more open eye, and you'll have to adjust your mask on your matte layer as he turns around. So that one will be a little bit more complicated, but it just depends on how you shoot it. So maybe you can, when you decide to do this, you shoot at maybe a more straight on angle or something that just makes it easier in post for you. It's your choice. But just know that you have to prepare for what you're going to have to do later on in post. So I hope this helped and you learned something out of this video, and like it, and keep coming back if you want more tutorials, and let me know in the comments whether this was good or bad. It helps me either way, you tell me, but I'd like to know if it was good or bad, and I'll see you later.
This is your problem, Dean. You have no faith.